Well, there's no doubt that one of the biggest worries for many people, especially young people starting out, has to do with buying their first home, if they even can. Joining us today is a woman who's going to answer a lot of questions for us, the Vice President of Community Banking for Meridian, Dilys. Welcome to What She Said.
Thanks so much.
Okay, so there has been so much media coverage and discussions about housing affordability. A recent report found the average house price in Toronto is now more than $900,000.
Crazy.
Yeah. Good word. So, I mean, are first-time home buyers just getting priced out of the market?
Yeah, so I know I was looking at, that number's always changing, and, how do you get in? And so I guess there are creative ways for first-time home buyers to get in. Firstly, Toronto is highly expensive. As we all know, the inventory is really low, so it's jacking the prices up. So people are moving to the outskirts. So, you can get a slightly lower-priced house as you move a little bit out of the GTA. But, we know that Hamilton, Burlington, up to Aurelia, Barrie, everybody's moving out, so the prices are going up. So how do first-time home buyers get in? It's a tough question, but I think that there's more creative alternatives for people to start considering to get in there. So one of the things we just recently launched a mortgage called Friends and Family Mortgage. So, just enabling people to go into joint ownership is one thing for first-time home buyers to consider. It's not right for everybody, and you have to work around that. There's kind of some really creative things going on. We also I was reading recently about a speed dating type mortgage service or actually home ownership service where you go in there and it matches prospective buyers together to try and buy a house. I'm not necessarily advocating that. I think that would be a little bit tricky if you didn't know the person. But I think it's about creativity. It's also about being realistic about what you can afford.
Now, Dilys, I've never heard of a friends and family mortgage. This sounds really creative. So if you had a child that couldn't qualify on their written salary, right, you could then, as a parent, would you have to go on title, or could you just be on title for the mortgage?
Yeah, you could co-sign as a parent,
exactly,
right? So that's one alternative that's always existed. But you can actually go on title for the mortgage if you want to, and then you have a piece of equity as well into that mortgage. Now, with a child, do you need to do that? And a lot of parents are also gifting down payments. So for first home buyers, going back to your question, Kate, is that there are creative ways. There's friends and family. There's a lot of parents that are gifting that first, that down payment, which is quite high. And then the friends and family it gives you an opportunity to either go in with friends or family, and you both share a stake in the equity. Now, with that, you would need a lawyer to really draft up your agreement.
Yes.
Because what if one person wants to get out or things aren't working, somebody defaults on the mortgage? There are things that you want to consider, but the option is there, I think, just to open the doors to allow people to be able to get into the market.
I think it sounds like a great idea if we were talking about if your parents were gifting it, or as a parent you were gifting it. But if you're also on the title, then that really helps. I mean, I think it's a great idea because you sort of feel a little bit more financial security as a parent if you're lending the money, but you're on the mortgage is also in your name. Because up to 4 people can be on that.
That's
mortgage?
right. That's right. And you could even think about you'd be on title for a certain period of time, and then you could let the reins go, and then maybe sell out your portion, and then they can eventually own it. So there's all different ways to kind of help them get in there, because it is tough right now to get in with the down payment. You need a minimum 10%. You can get in with 5%, but a house over $500,000, then between that $500,000 and $1 million, you need 10%. So it works out to about a 7.5% down payment.
Now, there are some very attractive and low mortgage rates available. Are you seeing a lot of your members taking advantage of these rates?
Yeah, so, it's quite interesting because we recently, until end of June, we have an 18-month offer out at 1.99.
Wow.
Which is ridiculously low, which is a great rate. But interestingly enough, most people who actually come in and sit down with our advisors will then just go to a 5-year. And right now we're offering 5-year at 2.59 because you have the security to know at 2.59, these are the rates that are, we've never seen such low rates. And so at least knowing that you've got a fixed rate, a fixed cost, monthly cost on your mortgage for 5 years, puts you peace of mind. So I find that people are still, and personally I think it's a good thing going longer term because of the rates being so low.
What's the most common mistake first-time buyers make?
Yeah, I think they get swept up in, in the house and not doing their due diligence beforehand financially. So by that I mean, it's really important to go in and see an advisor before you start the job search so that you know what you can comfortably afford and also get pre-approved. You don't want to go in a situation, especially with the bidding wars that are going on in Toronto and all over. Sometimes you can't. It's conditional on financing, sometimes they just want an offer without it being conditional on financing, and you don't want to be in that situation. You want to know that you can afford and you've been pre-approved. So I would say, go in before you start the job search and you get all excited and caught up in the frenzy, and get pre-approved so that you know what you can comfortably afford. And don't over-leverage yourself. And I think an advisor will help you with that because you don't want to be house poor and not be able to do anything else because you have a life to live and you also have to service that house. So there are expenses that come along with that.
And speaking of servicing the house, I've heard of a lot of people lately that have ignored the home inspection, and I think they're crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's something you really should do.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, it's getting swept up with the frenzy. It's getting swept up with the bidding wars. And you really need to go with a level head and say, you know what, to your point, you don't want any big surprises once you've bought that house and it's firm. And, all of a sudden you've got major problems or mold or roofing issues. And you have to now spend, a lot more money that you didn't budget for.
I think a lot of people too, first time they see this house, they love the house, they fall in love with the house and the idea of, and they're not even sure how much of the house or the idea of the house. And then the bidding war comes. And then you must hear stories, because I have, of people who've then gotten into the thing, of being competitive. No, I want it, and go up and up.
Yeah.
And then get stuck.
Yeah. And again, this is why I say go and see your advisor before you start that process, because you need to be really, really, really clear on what you can afford and what the bank's going to approve you for. And I think that would rein in the excitement. If you know that you cannot get any more.
You won't get a penny more than X.
Then you're not going to be able to get wrapped in that whole excitement and that frenzy.
What are the tax breaks for first-time buyers?
Yeah, so I think, one good opportunity is to use your RSP, the Home Buyers Purchase Plan. So basically, you can take out $25,000 out of your RSP and use it for, and this really helps for your down payment. And then you have 25 years to pay back that. Is it 25 or is it 15 years? Anyway, you have time to pay it back so that you don't pay a penalty to take that money out. Normally, if you take your RSP money out, you have to pay a penalty on it. So that is something I highly advise first-time home buyers to do, is to take out, use the home buyers plan to take out money out of your RSP and use it for your down payment. And it's 15 years. Sorry, I was going between 25 and 15. It's 15 years to pay back that RSP money that you take out.
Oh, that's great.
And just for anyone who doesn't know, very quickly, the difference between a variable mortgage rate and fixed?
Yeah, so a fixed mortgage rate is you lock into a term and you know exactly what your rate is. So right now our 5-year term, for example, is 2.59. That is your rate for 5 years.
Right.
If you go into variable, it is based off of prime. So right now if you went and a variable rate was prime is at 2.7 and there's a variable on it's either plus or minus. So let's say it's plus 0.5, so you're paying 3.2%. It will fluctuate with prime. If prime moves, so will your rate. Your payment will stay the same, but less will go to principal. So there's more fluctuation with going with a variable rate. And so if you need peace of mind and you want to know what your payment is going to be, what your rate is, definitely go with fixed. But right now with rates low, if you have that ability and you're comfortable having that fluctuation in your payment won't fluctuate, but the amount applied to principal will fluctuate against prime.
Is it possible to lock it in if you've got a variable rate at any time?
Yes, you can, as long as it's open. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much again for joining us, Dilys.
Thanks so much. Appreciate
Where can
it.
people connect with you and some of the invaluable help and advice that Meridian can offer?
So I would highly suggest go onto our website, www.meridiancu.ca, and locate a branch closest to you to go talk to an advisor. And we also have mortgage calculators on there. So if you want to start running some numbers to see what you can comfortably, the ballpark, what you can afford, you can go in there and use those calculators.